Hello again. This is Tori Woodhouse, and I have some news and update. It's been a while since I've spoken here, and I believe quality is more important than quantity. But for those of you who've been keeping up, or if you're new to joining my channel here, to give you a little background, I got it started around the time uh, after Christmas, but before New Year's, when there was a lot of chatter online about the whole H-1B visa thing. And coming from IT, being someone in IT, I paid a lot of attention to that conversation, and I've talked about it a few times here. There was a 52-week period that I had where I only worked 3 out of those weeks, and that was the longest sabbatical I had, involuntary sabbatical that I had in my whole career. This year marks 30 years since I left college, so I just turned 55 last month, and that was the first time that I actually tried to find work and had that long to get something. And what I got didn't actually pay me more. It didn't pay me more than the last job that I had. So it was a surprise that it took that long to find just that. But I needed to get off the sidelines. I did resign from it. This talk is pretty much going to be called "I Quit My Job from Where, Why, and What Now." I know for a while I've been close to the vest on who that was with, but I'm willing to reveal that now since I no longer work there. But before I get into that, let's give a little bit background. Uh, as I mentioned, I did start this channel talking about the whole H-1B stuff, and I noticed it quite a bit at this particular job. Uh, the reason I took a step away is because I was in the job for about 2 months before I was told that the client, as a staffing company, placed me there. The client they have a policy that they want all of the contractors, and I was a contractor, they want all the contractors to take 5 days off every quarter unpaid. So you do the math, in a year's time, that's basically a month that you are not billable. And if you also do the math, you figure out a month is about 8.3% of the year. So whatever rate that I got, which was not more than what I got in my last job, it was less. Uh, it's now even less, 8.3% less than I was anticipating. I don't think it was a malicious omission from the staffing company. I think the recruiter just kind of dropped the ball and forgot to tell me. Nevertheless, when that hit me, I did jump back into job search mode, and I put the pedal back to the metal to build up a pipeline of interviews, and that led to something that I'll get into in a minute. But that was part of the reason why I took a step away, and I started to ask myself, why did they have this policy? Why are they able to get away with it? And that leads me to a short story I'd like to share about a podcast that I listen to called Red Pilled America. And one of the co-hosts of that show is Patrick Corelchi. And he talked about when he was younger, he had several jobs at restaurants. Many of them were Mexican restaurants, and he would either be someone chopping up chicken or flipping tortillas. And he worked at one place where he didn't always take breaks, but he was on his feet so much that he took some time to sit down for a break, just about 10 minutes. And a manager saw him outside and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm taking a break." This is in California, so it's likely the law that you have to have a couple of breaks per workday. He said, the manager said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm taking a break." The manager said, "We don't do that here." And it bothered him. And he got, comfortable with a coworker and asked her, "Why do you think the manager is so uptight about us taking breaks?" And she said, Well, look around. Probably nobody else here has papers. And it dawned on him, yeah, all these people must be illegal. And if they're illegal and they're in the majority, then they can affect policy for everybody else, even the people who are there legally. And no one can afford to complain, even if it's the law that you're supposed to take, a couple of breaks a day. Well, where I worked was at Bank of America. And I was a contractor there. And I have mentioned, conservatively speaking, it was at least 50% Asian Indian, at least. And if you know how you have these contests where you have a bunch of jelly beans in a jar and you try to guess how many jelly beans are in the jar without going over and you win. Well, if I wanted to play that game, I would probably say about 75 to 80% without going over, and I would still win. But conservatively speaking, it was at least 50% in the line of business that I was in. And I didn't expect that at a place called Bank of America. Nevertheless, that's what it was. So how can they get away with it? Because when you have that many people and they're in the majority and they're on worker or student visas, they can't afford to complain. And that affects everybody else, including me. And how did I know a lot of them were probably worker or student visas? Because they spoke with an accent. And that might sound racist on the face, but I'll explain why it's not. When someone speaks with an accent, I know that they weren't born here. How do I know? Because you get an accent from the air that you breathe when you're learning to speak as a child. That's why you can have two people from another nation come to where you live, speak the same language that you speak, but they sound different. When they start having children in your area, their children will start to sound like your children. They won't sound like their own parents. They can have the same blood, same DNA as their parents, but they will sound more like the other kids who were born where you're born and raised than their own parents. And so when these people speak English with an Asian Indian accent, I know they're foreign born. And so they can be here legally, but I don't blame Bank of America for taking advantage of that loophole to allow them to save money, because the government allows it. President Trump was accused of something similar during a debate with Hillary Clinton. She said, well, you've taken advantage of these bankruptcy laws, and you paid less in taxes than what you should. And he said, well, that makes me smart. If you don't like the rules, you're a senator, you're in Congress, change the laws. But I know you're not going to change the laws because your donors and your friends get the same tax breaks that I get. So I don't blame the company for taking advantage of what's on the table for them. They play the hand that they're dealt. But it does bother me that our government sanctions this stuff, that they allow for it, because it affects a lot of stuff. I mean, you have the average age of a man getting married today is in their early 30s. The average age of a woman getting married is in her late 20s, around 29. For the guys, it's like 30, 31. If I look at my grandmother, I didn't do the math, but I imagine by the time she was 29, she probably already had 3 or 4 of her 8 children. And if you're saying that we have a population crisis, that we're not having enough children to replace ourselves, to grow just to sustain the current population numbers, it's not going to get better when women are having close to half, if not more, of their childbearing years delayed because of finances. And I know that finances are directly related to marriage. The communities that have more marriage in them, uh, they have more wealth associated with them as well. And who has low divorce rates, high marriage rates? It's Asian Indians. They do. And here in Texas, I got to tell you, if we're not being replaced by foreign-born Mexicans, we're being replaced by foreign-born Asian Indians. And it bothers me because, as I've said before, if you're, it's like the nation is telling us that we're too snooty, we're too snobbish to do the blue collar jobs, so we need the illegal immigrants from Mexico to do them. And we're too stupid to do the white collar jobs, so we need the Asian Indians to come in and do them for us. I just found out here recently that there's this H-4 visa that's usually given to the spouses of the H-1B visa folks. Well, you're not allowed to work if you're on the H-4 visa, but since I believe the Obama presidency, they said the heck with that. And H-4 visa people are allowed to work now, even though Congress hasn't approved it, even during the Trump administration. And the President Trump has said that he's familiar with both sides of the argument on the visa stuff. But I don't know if he's ever going to come around to being strong enough on it, because he has come out and said that he has used the program himself for waiters, maitre d's, and wine experts at his hotels and golf courses. Well, now with the no tax on tips, he runs first class operations. I'm sure there's some Americans who would love to work at his facilities with these first class clientele who are giving out first class tips, and now those tips don't have to be taxed. But he's being partial to immigrants, not the American citizen. He has also said, especially when he has these large corporations, and they're making announcements on the investments that they're going to make in the US, particularly the one with the OpenAI guy, the Oracle chief, and the chief of SoftBank. He said, you guys need tech people like no one's ever needed tech people. And he sounds like he's leaning towards allowing more and more foreign-born folks to come in and do that kind of work. He's already said, when people come and they take good advantage of our universities and they've done a good job, we should stamp on their diplomas a green card. I'm more of the Steve Bannon line of thinking, where no, you stamp an exit visa on their diploma, saying to go back and take what they've learned to make their country great again. We shouldn't be elitist about skill and education, because the president's not dumb, in my opinion. Certainly he must know that when you do this, when you're elitist about education and skill set, all that does is make America the place that other people envy, and they all either want to come here or they're mad at us because we're taking advantage of them. For example, Haiti, because of what the Clinton Foundation did with donations going to really people wanting to help Haiti. I'm sure that's left a bad taste in the mouths of a lot of people there in that country. And because of who we either support or don't support financially, militarily, that can lead to some hatred towards us. So allow these other places to go and be prosperous, so there's less hatred coming back our way. So I've covered, though, that I quit, why I did, a little bit more about why. There was another thing that was looming over my head, and that was this whole thing that I may have covered in another video about being on call. I have no problem with being on call. I've done it before, but I was a permanent employee when I did so. I've never been asked to do on-call duty as a contractor. And I felt some indirect pressure because there was at least 3 other contractors who were doing it. Not all. but I wanted my firm to at least get ahead of this potential problem and make sure that it wasn't going to happen to me. Because here's the way I see it. If I have to carry your corporate cell phone on me, even when I just go for a walk around the neighborhood, then that means I'm not able to unplug. And if I'm not unplugged, if I'm not able to be untethered from you, then I still should be able to bill you. I shouldn't just bill you only when there's an incident. You don't pay a security guard only when there's incidents. You pay them to be around and be ready. Well, I'm sure they don't want me to fill out a timesheet that way. And because I think that's the only fair way to do it, and probably really, I've looked up the law on this. It may be illegal to have me on call and not pay for that kind of time. But again, you're in a situation where not many people can afford to complain because of the way things are set up. So these are two things that concern me. And I want to make clear, though, I did like the work that I had. I did like the people in general. It really is Bank of America an engineer's dream because they have all the technology you can think of. If you whatever tech you want to get involved in, they have it. And I got to touch some of it just the time that I was there. I can imagine what you get to touch if you're there year after year. So I even said in a resignation letter, well, my resignation letter actually went to the consulting firm that placed me there. I don't know how much of that they shared with the people who actually said, yes, we want Tori. So I sent them something separate and I told them, hey, I really don't want to leave, but I just need something more full time. And I think they understood that. So I quit the job. Why? From where? And now I'll talk about what next. Well, what's next is when I mentioned I was at work for just 3 weeks out of a 52-week period, 2 of those weeks was with a man named Bill. He placed me at one of his clients who is involved in training, and they had several courses where they train folks who sell Cisco products. And now that Cisco owns Splunk, they wanted to create some content, some course content to help enable those folks to go sell Splunk to the same clientele they were already selling Cisco products to. Well, Bill reached out to me about some work with a client he had already approached about me as far back as January. And so I will be working with him again, but with a client of his who has another client of theirs. And that client is an equipment manufacturer in the world of cybersecurity and network engineering. And I will be in professional services, basically a resident expert in their product line and helping to implement and install that stuff. This time, though, I won't be a W-2 employee. I will basically be 100% 1099 work, so no taxes taken out, no healthcare plan or 401k or anything like that. So I had to get smart on those options myself. And so I know the difference between the SEP IRA, the simple IRA, and the solo 401k, sometimes called the individual 401k or the sole proprietor 401k. So for tax purposes, I'll pretty much be self-employed, and I'm looking forward to that. I did set up a solo 401k myself. I got smart on that, and then used AI to help validate the research that I'd done, and also some YouTube videos. There's a couple YouTubers that I saw some of their content, and it helped me make the decision that I made. And I got that all set up, ready to go. I ended the job Wednesday this week, started this new gig Thursday, the next day. I did tell Bank of America, hey, I don't want to leave you in a lurch. I don't know how much time it's going to take for me not to be a disruption, how much do you need? And they said, well, can you give us 2 weeks to help backfill? And I did that. And the end of that 2 weeks was this Wednesday, and started someplace else the next day. I'm looking forward to that. So, uh, Bill is the name of the guy that I work with, who helped get me this opportunity. And Bill told them, hey, if you want Tori, because he's already working someplace else, it needs to be full time. He needs a full time opportunity, and that's what this looks like. I was a little concerned until the laptop actually showed up last Friday, because people have a way of pulling the rug out from under you. There are stories about people quitting one job, about to start the next one, and hey, we don't have money for that anymore. Or people have gone through the trouble to relocate, and then the opportunity before it can start is already over. So I felt some more at ease when that actually showed up. It's a MacBook Pro. I got to tell you, I'm not a fan. I'm more of a Linux, uh, Windows guy. Windows just for work, and Linux in my personal life. So trying to get used to the Apple way of doing everything on a PC, not loving it. And it doesn't mean I'm an Apple hater. I have an iPhone. In fact, I switched to iPhone back in 2018 because of battery life and really support. I think I got my first smartphone around 2010, 2011. And in that 7-year period before I got the iPhone, I must have had 3 or 4 Android phones, maybe 5, but at least 3. And but in the next 7 years, I've had just this one iPhone, and it still lasts all day with a charge. So I'm not thumbs down on them. Obviously, I'm invested in mutual funds, and Apple is like in the top 5 holdings of the funds because of their size and where they stand in terms of market share. But I'm not saying I'm an old dog, don't want to learn new tricks. It's just I'm not as fast with it right now. That is for sure. Um, but we're all squared away, ready to go. And it's been a while since I gave an update here, and not here to make money. So if I were, I guess I put out content every day. There are not many folks who are watching, but you know, I do post things in other places, but it's pretty much just in writing. This is cathartic for me. I like seeing the comments that you guys give. If this is your first time checking me out, subscribe. I like to read your comments. I'll have some other things to say here shortly, but just wanted to give this quick update. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.